630 Ched presents The Announcers. Opinion, personality, passion. The Announcers on 630 Ched, Edmonton's breaking news and conversation station.
This week's edition of The Announcers. We're all back together. Right, Jespers and Jalen and I, Andrew Gross. So we had staggered our trips, and without coordinating ahead of time, all of us wound up visiting at different times Huatuco, Mexico.
We passed each other at the airport.
Literally.
There's Ryan in the window with the baby and Carrie waving as we're walking by.
You know, that's a funny thing about how small the world is and how appreciative you are to see somebody you know halfway around the world, because I've seen you walk into the building many times, Jesperson. I've never seen Jayla and I go flying over to wave at you. But
right
it made me feel very special.
And I'm blowing kisses to him.
We had a moment. We had a moment.
And I blew by everybody to get to customs ahead of you.
But that was well played.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We joked about that after. I said he understands that there's a huge lineup.
No.
Yeah.
He understands that he needs to have a cigarette.
Well, that too. Whatever
That's
my
what it
reasoning
was.
is, I got to the front of the line. That's the important thing.
I found myself thrilled to see you both, but also somewhat resenting you. There's something about that feeling when you're about to board a plane to go home and you've got a long travel day ahead of you, and someone's just touched down at the end of their travel day.
You know, it's funny you should mention that. We were thinking about that. My wife and I were talking about that. We went outside of the hotel on day one, and we were just sitting on that bench outside of Dreams, and we saw the people standing there with their suitcases, and they looked so sad. And Carol said, well, that'll be us in a week. Yeah. And sure enough, it was.
So make the most of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
right.
we were down there on a family vacation. The two of you had the opportunity to head down with a whole bunch of Ched listeners.
Yeah.
That must have been fun to kind of put some faces to the names on the text line.
You know what? It really was. And you don't know going into that what that's going to look like.
That could be you just don't know what you're getting. But it was awesome.
It was awesome, like especially for the reasons you said, to meet some of the people who listen to us all the time and text us, but also to meet those people who listen to us all the time but don't text us. Just to sit down and talk with an actual average listener and see what it is they think of the show and what they want to know about the show, that kind of thing was interesting.
And then there were those whose partners listened to the show.
That's true,
and they've
too.
never listened to the show before. And so then it was like, okay, well, what's your show about and who are you? And anyway, it was interesting. It was a neat group of people that actually really gelled really well together. It was the kind of just did their own thing, came back together, went back off again. And there is now talk within the next couple of months of having a reunion
That's right,
at one of the guys' places. Bernie, the weekend of Bernie's.
Oh, that's amazing. There are, for people that have been to Huatuco, in and around that developing region when it comes to tourism, several nude beaches. Did this pose any interesting scenarios or dilemmas with the hosts of the 630 Ched Afternoon News and the listeners?
Well, first of all, I did not know of their existence until just today. And I think that's probably a good thing. First of all, I can't imagine the degree of awkwardness that is reached when your co-host and you see each other naked. Yeah. There's just no coming back from that, frankly. And I don't really care who your co-host is. There's just no coming back from that. And while I really admire the intelligence and personalities of our listeners, that's where I'd like to leave it. Shorts. Speedo at the best. I don't need to see their junk.
There were some that went on a tour on their own one day, and they ended up stumbling across one of these beaches, and they weren't quite sure what it was until they turned around, and there was a fellow there who actually was like, hello, welcome to the Nude Beach in Huatuco.
Yeah.
And they kept walking, and I think it was Effie and Barb. Somewhere along the line, they both turned around and snapped some pictures.
Yes.
Ooh, I think that might be against the rules.
It might be against the rules. And then I think it got posted to Facebook, and it says, and it's from a distance, but it says, if you look real close, not.
You never want to for someone to have to look too closely.
Yeah. They didn't have the zoom lens on, but they said it was an experience, and that was fun. But there were Speedos. We ran into a couple of Speedos. I have great admiration for older men who are willing to put on a teeny, tiny baby blue and pink Speedo and strut their stuff around the resort.
Admiration is one word.
I just think it's great that they don't care.
Yeah, they definitely don't. I saw that thing coming at me from all the way down the beach. The image stuck out. I'm just looking down the beach, and there's all kinds of very nice, attractive people, but I saw none of them. I saw right through to that guy, proud that guy. His chest was out this far.
Nobody is sitting on the side of the road watching the cars that aren't crashing.
That's true. Right? That's true.
But you know what? That got us into a conversation, though, this week, which, you go to the gym. You've been to the gym.
I have been to a gym.
Come on, Ryan. That tall drink of water doesn't come naturally.
That just doesn't happen.
All right.
God blessed him with the body of Adonis.
Exactly.
And the fact that in some change rooms that people seem to be extremely comfortable in just walking around in their nakedness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And see, I wanted to ask you about that because you weren't part of that conversation. I represented all guys in this conversation, and Jalen all women. It's one thing to go to a nude beach where you sort of put your expectations are sure that you're going to see nude people, and let's not even discuss whether or not everyone at the nude beach is qualified to be at a nude beach. But
come on.
Well, that's the thing though about it.
Yeah, that's the beauty
of it. All
it.
right, okay, that's fair.
All
right.
You can walk along
loud
there
and proud,
anytime.
man.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you what the rules are as far as you're concerned with regard to a change room, though, where there's some expectation of nudity, of course, because you're changing, but this prolonged nudity and this lack of distance, and again, I don't want to come across as a prude, but you know the old guy who puts his leg up on the bench and talks to you about stock exchange?
Yes.
Really?
There's a buddy of ours that plays hockey with us, and that's his thing. But, I'm convinced that he does it because he knows that it's his thing. It gets a reaction. But he'll come up and he'll put his leg on the bench and he'll just ask you about your.
But is he doing it to make you uncomfortable, or is he doing it?
I don't think so. No, he's definitely not showing off. I guess technically he kind of is, but people can show off their base model Honda Civic. You can show off anything. People do have different levels of comfort. I mean, we still have the buddies, and the hockey locker room is the reference point that I'll use here. That put the towel on before they take the jock strap off, and then they drop the jock strap under the towel, and then they're in the shower facing the wall, and then when they get out, they pull their boxers on under the towel, and then drop the towel. I mean, and that's fine. I mean, that's sort of their level of modesty. And then you have the other guys who, are quite the opposite of that.
It's a matter of thinking about other. It's one thing to be comfortable with your own nudity, but then there is that matter of what is everyone else around you's comfort level in a public place. You're a parent. There's going to come a day very soon when you're taking your child into that change room to get them ready to go out to the pool, and you're going to have naked men in there. And wouldn't you prefer that they not linger in their nudity?
That's a great question. Because, I mean, I guess it all depends. It's like the European model of alcohol consumption versus the North American model, and which goes to suggest that in countries like France or Germany, where there's less of a stigma, less of a big deal made about alcohol, the less of a big deal teens will make about it when they grow. In other words, they're not as desperate to get their hands on it. There's not as much binge drinking with 16, 17, 18-year-olds that have tried wine, a small amount of it, when they were 10 or 12 with their parents. And so I kind of wonder if you make a really big deal about nudity when a kid's young, then they'll maybe turn it into a big deal in their own mind. Now, that said, of course, there is the other side of it.
Of course there is.
Where if someone's peacocking, if someone's sort of like showcasing themselves.
I didn't know there was a term for it.
Well, I mean, if somebody.
Katy Perry wrote a song about it.
There you go.
And I'd also like to assume that if you appeal to your fellow human, that people are a little bit more sensitive or conduct themselves a little bit differently when kids are in the room. Let me say this. When we were down in Mexico, I don't want to say the name of the beach we stayed at or the name of the resort just because it's under-traveled and fabulous and I don't want to wreck it. But we stayed at a resort that appeals to nude clientele.
Ah, hello.
We kept our clothes on. Because we were traveling with a group, my best man in my wedding, his wife, their kid, my wife, our kid. I'm not like my buddy's wife, me, her. I mean, it was just that was kind of whatever. We actually never talked about it. It's just no one geared down. That was just the way it worked out. But the hotel had an interesting policy. They said no nudity in the restaurant.
That's a good policy.
But they don't enforce it, by the way, and that's a whole other story. Oh, just wait. I
can see why it's not well traveled.
This episode of The Announcers is about to turn into story hour. But they also have an interesting. It's not a. There's no no children policy. We were allowed to have our kids there, but children or young people between the ages of 3 and 18 are not welcome. So you can have your little one there up to the age of 3, and then they'll cut it off until they're 18. And I think that says something as well. So once you're maybe a little bit more aware of your body, once you're a little more, even at a rudimentary level, aware of private parts and then into sexuality, I don't think that they want like 8-year-olds there or 12-year-olds there. So that's an interesting one. But yeah, they didn't crack down on the no nudity in the restaurant policy, which
that's
I would say takes a few days to get used to, but you don't get used to it. Sitting down, I mean, like there's a guy like buck naked, like eating an ahi tuna salad and sipping on a margarita, like with his bare ass on the restaurant chair that you might be sitting on for dinner.
I'm more comfortable with that visual than I am with that same guy going down the buffet line. I mean, you know what I mean?
But you understand that this is because, as far as I know, you're not a nudist. For these people, like, it's not a big deal.
Sure.
I mean, like, there's like, I'm talking about an actual thing that happened. Like, a guy is sitting there, and the best part about it is they all wear hats.
Well, yeah,
because they want to protect their
You got to have some
sun,
decorum.
I guess. So the guy's wearing a hat and nothing else, and he's sitting there at the desk in the front lobby, like talking about his room, and he's just like, I mean, but for him, it's not a big deal.
Did you know going to this place that it was?
Yeah, we knew. I had never been down there before, and my buddy, who, as mentioned, has a place in the region, says we've been to this beach a ton of times. This resort is spectacular. Not everybody there is nude, but there is a nude beach, and some of the clients will be nude. But he's like, we can kind of like, it's not in your face. You can kind of keep to yourself. It's not all over the place. He told a little white lie. Oh, it was all over the place.
Yeah,
but we weren't the only ones. I mean, a lot of people. But it's funny because I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I don't sort of like feel like I have a supermodel body. So when I'm just in board shorts, I feel somewhat vulnerable. Down there, I felt like a prude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would.
Like I was the guy in board shorts when everyone else is buck.
What does the dancing in the lobby
look
like
goodness.
at 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah,
people are making fun of Jesper today. Look at that freak with no hat.
He's going to get a sunburn on his
the
head.
whole thing, and you'd mentioned the whole then putting the bare tuchus on the chair that you might be sitting in, later on for dinner, and
that's true too.
Goes back to the gym again. Like people who just put their bare butt down on the bench to change. Like, shouldn't you put a towel down first?
But I don't know. I mean,
really?
Is a butt cheek that much dirtier than an elbow or a wrist?
I would think so. I'm not a doctor. But I would.
I guess it depends.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what your personal cleanliness is.
Well,
like,
exactly right. But it's all about personal space and consideration for others, right? Because while we're talking about vacations and while we're talking about sharing space, can we just take a moment with the chair on the plane? It does recline.
Oh.
There's no question that the chair was designed to recline, and there's certainly no rule against reclining a chair. But common decency and common courtesy, tells you that you don't recline it suddenly and into the lap of the person behind you without at least acknowledging that you just ruined their trip. I mean,
think
something.
This has been an issue since the Wright brothers discovered that humans could fly.
Yeah. And people are almost indignant about it. They put their chair right back. And it used to be there was a time when you traveled that chairs were all upright for meals, for example, because you knew that the tray was positioned on the back of your chair. But now you get that one guy or that one girl that just puts the chair back, doesn't ask, doesn't care. And I would say, and you can argue with me all you want, it's either a lack of experience in traveling or they're simply ignorant. It's one of those two things. But no seasoned traveler that I know would ever do that. And when you bring it up on radio, people will say, well, why do the chairs recline then? Or why isn't there a rule against it? But there's no rule against flatulence on a plane. But you know not to do it for a 5.5 hour.
Most people know.
Right, exactly.
The guy sitting near to us, or it could have been a gal we don't know, on our flight back, did not know that.
Which one, the chair?
There was no public awareness about flatulence.
Really?
On the
that is the worst.
It was shameless.
Really?
It was appetite robbing and shameless.
Like that's when you get up and go to the bathroom and
I almost wanted to say it.
Go do it there.
Here's the thing. When it comes back, and Andrew, I actually think I've never heard someone say it so succinctly, but I think you're right. I think it's either inexperience in travel or ignorance. I'm not saying that I'm like the greatest traveler, but I've done a lot of traveling. I do not recline my chair. I don't care if I'm sleeping or not. I never recline my chair.
Yeah, actually, we talked about this on the. I have found a way to sleep leaning forward. So I put the tray down, put my carry-on on the tray, and then lay down face forward.
And then the person puts the seat back. And
well, that's just the only thing. He drives my head into my shoulder blade, but.
On the way back, I grabbed my little chair, got my window seat because I like my window seat because I can sleep that way, put my head up, and if I have to, a little tiny, little titch back, but very rarely, it's usually straight up because that's good with me. If I stick my head in there, it's all good. And then they come over and they drop off my little bottle of champagne and my little box of olives and hummus.
You're one of those swanky travelers.
Yeah, no, we got the preferred.
Really yeah. But then next thing you know, dude in front of me jams back his chair, and I mean jams it back, and it seemed to be even further back than normal. And now the top of his chair is almost at my breasts. I cannot open a book. I cannot use my tray. There's nothing here. And so the stewardess is like dropping this off. I said, what am I supposed to do with this?
That was the tone she used, too. I was right behind her.
I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
You're like, I was right in front of her.
What is this? And she looks
relaxing.
at me, and she says, well, you can put your seat back, too, if you'd like. And I'm like, well, then my head's in Andrew, like this. No. She says, well, you can move chairs. How about you ask the dude while I have food in front of me to put up the seat? Nothing.
Now, did you speak to the guy ahead of you?
No, I did one of these on the back of his chair.
Yeah,
I do that as well. You get knees to the back the whole trip if you do that to me.
Yeah, it was.
And I will constantly put things in and out of that pocket.
And fiddling,
tray up, tray down, tray up, tray down.
Just passive aggressive instead of just saying, "Excuse me, sir, could you put your seat up a little bit?" No, you just sit there and stew, and it's 20 minutes into the flight, and you're thinking, "This isn't going to be the longest 5 hours of my life."
And I think on the opposite side of the coin, on the flip side, the person that's putting the seat back, there's different ways of doing it, right? There's the person that slowly eases it back, trying to, I think, gauge how it's going to go. And then there's the person that just rocks it back and then I think waits for the dust to settle to see if anything will happen. And the true veterans will do it as soon as it's wheels up.
That's right.
Right? Like, and oftentimes before the seatbelt light goes off. But there's that awkward moment where you, as the victim in this circumstance, and I use the word on purpose, understand, so it's going to be like that.
Right.
And the other person
And you know what? It was particularly egregious in your case because the row in front of you, the row in front of him was the gap for the emergency exit. So there was it wasn't additional leg space. There was no chair.
He had everything in front of him.
So he had all the room in the world to put his legs out, but he needed his head back as well. And he was quite indignant about it because after you left, he said to his wife, well, what's her problem?
What's my problem?
So he didn't he didn't understand that he had created the problem at all.
It's like he wanted me to give him a scalp massage.
Yeah. Right
there in the chair.
Well, I thought you were the people's broadcaster,
yeah,
Jayla, and I thought you were...
don't touch strangers' bald heads.
Okay, So if someone says, well, then why do the seats recline if we shouldn't recline them? Should modern-day airplanes under construction right now not have the option of seats reclining?
Well, we got talking about this.
Yeah.
Maybe on overnight flights?
Maybe
like from 10 p.m. till
maybe you're able to limit. If the airlines are going to increasingly decrease the amount of space between rows, then they should decrease the recline of the chairs. But I would agree with reclining a seat, provided there's no one behind you. So I would like them to be able to recline, and I've certainly done that on a flight before, where I take a look, no one behind me, we're good to go. But I think the airlines have to be a little proactive about this, and it doesn't have to come down to the new planes. I'm sure they could go and modify the existing planes for very little cost to just simply block them from going all the way down.
Oh, that would be easy to do.
Way easy to do, and it is ridiculous just how far they do recline. It really
was unreal.
is.
I can just see the protest, though, right? Like they've already eliminated the meals on flights. Mm-hmm. I mean, some flights are going so far now to if you want a snack, if you want the token snack, you've got to even pay for it.
That's
I mean, like air travel has changed, and you can. I mean, people can look online. The airline industry is actually leading the way on surcharges and finding different ways to avoid the word tax and to drop their prices when really they're not dropping prices at all. I mean, back in the day, it was not unusual even for a flight to Vancouver to include a sandwich and a beverage.
Yeah.
I mean, now, good luck, right? For me, this was also an interesting trip because it was the first trip we've taken as a family with a 6-month-old infant, with a baby. And
Did you get the death stares when you were getting on the plane?
Well, and here's the thing: is because I've worn the shoe on the other foot. Yeah. I've been that other person, and I've never tried to be the, I'll say it, the jerk that kind of like looks at the family and kind of goes, oh, but like, if the new mom or the new dad sits down beside you, let's be honest, everybody goes, oh, come on, right? You just know, and we got lucky. It just so worked out that our son is actually a champion traveler, and the only noise that he was making was this wonderfully endearing cooing, and he's learning his own voice, so the odd shriek, and people would laugh, and the flight attendants loved it, and it actually worked out okay. I'll put it this way: we dodged a bullet, but it made me incredibly nervous getting onto the flight, and it also gave me an appreciation for people that give parents the benefit of the doubt.
Well, if you're going to take a child on a flight, and we've all talked about this before, and you probably, I'm guessing, did it the right way, you have to be really proactive with that child. You have to time their nap, their food. You have to stay involved. A 5.5-hour flight, if you can get them to go to sleep, that's great. But really, you have to stay alert and on top of that. You're parenting for the plane at that point.
My game plan has always been, and I'm talking since high school, to pull an all-nighter before a morning flight, because I'm a procrastinator and I wait to pack, and sometimes I'm a night owl kind of a guy. Pull the all-nighter, show up to the airport just exhausted. Get through, pass out on the flight, sleep the whole time, wake up at your destination. My wife, Carrie, says to me the day before, that's not going to work, right? Like, that we're co-parenting on this flight, right? You get it. And you're right. You're on full duty all the time.
You are. And it's great when you're traveling with your spouse, because then at least you can take some shifts off, or one can go to the bathroom or whatever. I have been on flights with a baby by myself. You pray. As much as you've been the other person that you talk about who just rolls their eyes, you pray that the person in the third seat is going to cooperate a little bit with you.
Or that there's no one in the third seat.
Right, exactly.
Lucky,
well, I'd prefer a cooperative person than no person. I mean, you can put it up, you can put the rail up, or whatever you call it, the handrail there, and get a double seat for your baby to lie down. But if you get somebody who loves babies, and is willing to maybe hold it for you, hold him or her, while you run to the bathroom or something like that. It's really helpful.
We had people offer. One lady came up to us probably an hour into the flight and said, I'm a grandmother. I rarely get to see my grandkids.
Nice.
If the two of you need a break, I'd love to hold your little guy. And you know what it reminds me? I know that it's 2016, and I know that criminals are hiding everywhere, and evil lurks around every corner.
Hard to escape
We've
from a
always
plane,
got to be
though.
diligent and careful. Hard to escape from a plane, but it reminded me that there are wonderful people out there.
Sure.
Not that I had lost faith in that fact. But it meant a lot to me, and it's a bit of a perspective check, a bit of a reality check. For me, though, it's easier to excuse a crying baby on a flight than it is an idiot adult.
Absolutely.
I'll cut some more slack to the little one. So here we are back. Aloe vera, trying to prevent the peeling.
Yeah, I know.
How are you finding it? Are you finding that you're adjusting back okay, or was it not quite enough time for you to fully immerse yourself in the relaxation?
I'm leaving for Mexico in a week.
Andrew.
I don't know what contract
we're both going to be stuck here in the snow, hoping that the person sitting in front of you on the flight reclines their chair the minute you take off
with their baby.
Yep.
Where are you headed off to?
And
back to Mexico. We're going to Cancun.
Yeah, Cancun.
Yeah, family trip this time.
Fabulous spot.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself.
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful time. We'll hold down the fort here in the snow and
I'm going to Resolute next week.
Boom.
Unbelievable. You can catch Jalen and Andrew every weekday from 2 to 6 on the 6:30 CHED Afternoon News. Of course, I'm on the air from 9 to noon. Thanks for tuning in on this edition of The Announcers. You can send us an email anytime by following the show's link at 630ched.com.